So we're planting tomatoes this weekend in the greenhouse. I know a lot of you decided to wait until the cold patch that's coming tonight and tomorrow night is gone before you plant. But if you're planting inside your greenhouse, I'm sure you've already planted, if not this weekend. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we do that help us. There's no right or wrong. This isn't like this be all end all. I'm just giving people information who have not grown before or who have grown unsuccessfully and might have questions or get some good things from what we've learned over the years. So here is a tomato plant. Typically, what you want to do is get it as deep in the ground as you can. Now, some of you are probably planting in pots or troughs or whatever and may not be able to get as deep as we're going to talk about, and that's fine. You can still plant it that way. The reason that people talk about taking leaves off and planting deeper is that tomatoes are unique in the fact that they will grow root from all of this stem, and the more root they have, the better they produce. So if you have the room, what you're going to want to do is pull off as many of these bottom leaves as you can, right? And we're going to pick 2 layers to keep on the top. 2 little, see that little stem? These, we're going to pick that. So when we plant it, we're going to plant it all the way up to here. You see how much stem you have there? Right? All that will become a new root for you. And another great thing about it is it's not going to get leggy and loppy on you, right? Sturdy, planted right there. So amendment is one thing you want to consider with tomatoes. It's very important that you use amendment. You don't have to, but it makes a huge difference in production. And there's all sorts of amendment available to you. You can look online, you can look on YouTube. What I have done personally in the last year and now this year is that I prefer to give the majority of feed, calcium and magnesium via liquid onto the actual plant. Drenching is what I do. But with tomatoes, I plant a literal cupful, whole cup, 16 ounces full of amendment. And the amendment that I'm using this year, let me show it to you, is from Down to Earth. That's my favorite powder amendment. I know you guys have seen me talk about it before. Make sure you do some oyster shell. Make sure of it. And then I use fish bone. So fish meal. Fish meal. And then as an additive for feed, I use BioLive. Now mycorrhiza is real important. You'll see a lot of professional tomato growers talk about mycorrhiza. It's very, very expensive. It's like $100 for a small bag. BioLive has mycorrhiza in it, so it's helpful that it's mixed in for you and you don't have to buy an extra bag of any substance. I mix the BioLive, the bonefish meal, and the oyster shell together into a container. Let me show you. That way it's easy for me to just grab 1 cup or 1 glass full of something and dump it in a hole, so you're not like scooping out from 3 different containers at a time. So see, oh, that's not the right one. Here we go. See that? You can see the mix of the 3 in there. See the cup? I do a full cup below every plant, right? So here's what it ends up looking like. Now this plant, right, has, did you see the circle that's around it? There's a reason we do that. We pile extra dirt around, we make a well so that water is contained. So whether you're using a sprayer or a drip system, you want to contain as much water around the plant as possible and don't lose it in other areas outside the plant, right? So that's what that does. It creates kind of a bowl for the water to set in and saturate in for just that particular plant. Now, we immediately put a cage on. Why? Because you want the plant to have support and sturdiness, especially up here. There's going to be wind, whether it's inside or outside a greenhouse that you're planting. Give it its support now, and some people will forget about it and have their plants break in wind. Like it gets, a foot tall and you're like, oh, it's sturdy, it's doing great. And then boom, you get a storm and there it goes. So put your cage on immediately. It's helpful for the plant. Okay. I think those are the main things that I wanted to talk about today. You want to start feeding right away. So probably at least in another week at the most, you want to start to feed. Bloom time is coming. So you're going to want to do basic feed at first, root, calcium and magnesium. all tomatoes need calcium and magnesium. We'll talk more about that later, but liquid forms are easier to dose if you're doing a large amount of plants. And they're also easier because they're readily available. The liquid is readily available where the powder is not. It takes time to break down. So in a week, I'm going to be doing calcium magnesium drench, and I'll be doing a feed drench, right? And then after that, I'll be doing it twice a week. I'll be feeding twice a week. So that's the best thing you can do for your tomato plants. Also this year, because we've noticed that our tomatoes in past years have gotten scorched due to the fact that this greenhouse, we have both ends open, but we're not able to open the sides. But this greenhouse will be 120 degrees during the day. They don't like it. Okay, tomatoes like heat and sun, but they don't like that kind of heat. So we've put up this cloth, shade cloth. It's a 30% cloth. We're draping it over all the tomatoes this year. Next year we're going to have cloth extending across the entire greenhouse that we can fold back, push forward. That way we can decide what plants get 30% shade and what plants do not. So that's another thing you want to consider. If you've had problems with your tomatoes, leaf scorch, and you think, oh, they just look like they didn't get enough water, a lot of times it's the sun and the heat. So you want to keep them slightly covered if it's too hot or you're in an area that you know is getting full sun all day long and not enough cool temps. So keep that in mind too. I think that's it for today. Irrigation, the best thing you can do is drip if you can. If you do spraying, the leaves can sometimes get too much water and you can get different diseases from too much water on the leaves. I think that's it. We planted 30 varieties this year of tomatoes. Oh, here's a sneaky thing for you. Oh, I'll talk about that later. Okay, anyway, planting tomatoes.